Reuse, recycle, and reclaim. I'll tell you all about it coming up next. Welcome to The Garden Home, a show about design and blurring the lines between inside and out. Today there's a lot of talk about reducing our carbon footprint, and there's some things that you can do personally that can make a big difference, like repurposing, recycling, and reusing things. So in today's show we're going to focus on, well, things around the house that you can take an alternative approach to and help the planet. For instance, I'll show you a clever way to use broken terracotta in the garden and a fun way to light your garden for dirt cheap. I'll also share one of my favorite party favor ideas. Plus, we'll visit an eco-friendly garden in the heart of Kansas City. I'll show you how I screen views in my garden and utilize plants for ground covering. I have so much to share with you in today's show, so why don't we get started? Well, that's a problem, but no worries, I've got just the solution. You know, I love to come up with creative ways to use things we might discard. If you grow things in containers, particularly terracotta containers, you know you can break them. So why would you throw away those broken pieces of shard? They're great for putting in the bottom of containers. You can also use them in a different way. For instance, I'm taking these broken pieces of a terracotta saucer and using them for name tags in my garden. Of course, for instance, this is dill, and what I'm doing is I'm writing on this shard. I can write dill, and this variety is fern leaf. So fern leaf goes on that. It's particularly helpful with different kinds of thymes, because there are dozens of different types of thymes. Also basils. And then if you start getting into annuals and perennials, well, you know what I mean. There's all kinds of names that you need to remember there. What I like to do is just take a terracotta shard like this. It's important to wipe it off just with a wet paper towel. You want to make sure that any kind of residue of soil is removed and dust all along the edge here. And I've done these, you can see. So this would be basil, and I'm going to use it for that one, and that's columnar. If you're like me and you have friends who visit your garden and they're very curious about what you've planted, well, by having some of these signs around, they'll know exactly what's planted there. The other thing I like about this terracotta is that, well, you're recycling it, but it also will last a long time. You're using a waterproof indelible marker, so the print on it stays for at least a full season. And these are natural looking, so they don't pop out. They don't look like litter in the landscape. Just an idea. Give it a try. Hey, here's a really fun idea for you. You know, throughout the autumn, there are wonderful opportunities for parties, and I'm always looking for clever ways to give someone a little party favor. So here's an idea using bulbs, because they get the joy of planting and then they get, well, the finished results. But let's talk about the idea. You can start with a little bag like this. You can pick them up at a craft store or online. These are just made of burlap. And what you do is you just take some crinkle paper like this. Doesn't take much, just a little bit. You place it in there, create sort of a little nest for the bulbs, and then you can take a dozen or so tulip bulbs, you can do daffodils, you can do hyacinths, whatever you like, and just fill those in like this. And then at the top, just tie a ribbon of your choice. So if your color theme happens to be orange and purple, where it might go with pumpkins or whatever you might be using in your decor, or if you want to go with brown or even raffia, anything goes. And it's a really fun and exciting gift for someone to take home. What I also like to do is just tuck inside some planting directions so they get them planted correctly. And I always include planting them in the ground and also ideas in planting them in containers. And then what happens in the spring is they get beautiful blooms like this. Look at these gorgeous hyacinths, tulips, as well as daffodils. One of my favorites, ice follies. Hey, your guests will be able to take home a gift that they'll be able to enjoy for years. In the heart of Kansas City's historic art district, the community benefits in more ways than one with this urban garden project. While on a recent visit, I met up with Gene Lund to learn more about the way they reuse the city's stormwater. Gene, this is quite a project. In fact, it would be considered, I guess, a model project, wouldn't it?
This is kind of really a demonstration piece of how municipalities and communities can look at a piece of property that they need to stabilize or do something with, or maybe beautify.
Sure, sure.
And in our
Make
case,
useful.
Make useful. We wanted to kind of capture the water that was falling around the site and on the site and contain that, filter it, and utilize that.
Sure.
And from that, we decided to grow vegetables.
So Gene, how large is this site?
It's about 1.5 acres. From an average rainfall, it's about 1 million gallons.
Really? Yeah, for this size property.
For the size of property.
Wow, that's a lot of water.
Well, to be specific, it's also capturing the street runoff as well.
I see, which is a big problem in a lot of cities, isn't it?
Correct. When that runoff goes into the sewer system, it becomes a problem.
So let's back up. This was a vacant lot, if you will, an underutilized resource that a corporation owned and came to you all and came to the community and said, let's do something beneficial with it.
That's correct. And their initial thought was to do a rain garden. And so a rain garden at its most simplistic is a depression that's going to hold water for a period of time. And it's also filtering that water that runs through it. And so we utilize that, saying, well, if we make our border porous and bring in some street water that's filled with heavy metals and salts and that sort of thing.
Especially that first flush after a rain.
Especially that first flush. We filter that, capture it, and utilize that.
Which takes us to the next component of this, which is the energy.
Correct. And so to offset that power consumption of those two pumps, we've introduced some photovoltaic panels.
You got them mounted on this really cool building here behind us.
That's right. And those are grid tied, and the reason they're grid tied is you don't have to maintain the battery system. So being grid tied really means that we're feeding back to the system that which we're pulling off.
Don't you love that?
It's wonderful.
Yeah, it really is.
And I believe I've heard from the ownership group that there's been maybe a $5 energy bill. So I think that's pretty good.
That's amazing. Can you imagine what it would be like across America if in every community, every vacant lot was treated this way?
It'd be amazing.
It would
Absolutely.
be tremendous. And look at all the vegetables too.
My name is Kathy Pemberton, and I coordinate the agriculture portion of 18 Broadway. This is a complete pleasure to work at a project like this, to be associated with a project like this, to work with the volunteers. The food goes to our local food bank. They seem to be very appreciative, and they help us keep track of what we harvest. There's 2 big holding tanks at the lower point of the project, and the water is pumped out of them. Well, the wind turbine actually powers the LED lights on the perimeter. We have volunteers from DST Systems, who owns and develops the site, and we also have volunteers from 6 other companies and organizations.
Who doesn't have eyesores around their garden or landscape that they want to cover? Hey, it might be your air conditioning units by the house. It could be where you keep your garbage cans. It might be something in your neighbor's yard that you're really tired of looking at. You know, one solution is to plant a screen like this. You see, this hedge is Needlepoint Holly, and it's over 5 feet tall. But when I started with a plant this size. This is just one example of a plant that you can use to solve a problem by screening. I mean, look through here. You can't really see anything. It's like growing your own wall. From a small plant like this, great hedges can grow. As you can see, this hedge is so dense, there could be a used car lot behind there, you'd never know it. But there's actually just a greenhouse. Are there problems around your home and garden where you can't get grass to grow? Maybe it's under a tree. Maybe it's too shady. Maybe there's too much traffic and it beats the grass down. Or maybe there's a slope where you can't hold the mulch or the soil in place. That's the time to look for a plant that can cover the ground, like this one. This plant is an excellent example of a plant that will cover the ground. It's called winter creeper. It'll grow in full sun or shade. And let me tell you, this little plant will cover a large area. Just take a look at this bed in front of the house. It gets broiling sun. You see, this winter creeper produces these long tendrils. Everywhere it touches the ground, a new plant roots, and soon you have a blanket of green. Nice alternative to a lawn, don't you think? Less water and less maintenance. And the other thing is that the leaves actually turn a nice bronzy red in the fall and winter. And the way I keep it trimmed, I just raise the lawnmower up just a little bit and mow this just like you would the lawn twice a year. And hey, that's all there is to it. You know, outdoor lighting can be, well, pretty expensive, but I've got an idea where you can actually recycle some things and come up with something pretty amazing, particularly if you're going to have a party or something outside. And it starts with recycling some of these globes. You've probably seen these, well, maybe in your attic or at a resale shop. You see, all you need are some of these light fixture globes, some LED Christmas lights for outdoor use, and an extension cord. Using LED lights will keep the glass globes from getting too hot and breaking. Now, once you've assembled these elements, find a place in your garden that you want to illuminate at night. Place the strand of lights inside the globes and place them where you want them. And make sure you have access to an electrical outlet nearby. You can easily hide the cords by covering them with mulch or tucking them behind the shrubbery. Just plug them in and you've got a beautiful display for evening entertaining. This is a great way to repurpose items and add a little light to your garden without breaking the bank.
This is awesome.
Well, you know, the farm is a really big place, and if it wasn't for my brother and my sister-in-law, I really couldn't have this place. They really do run it.
This is pretty.
Well, I mean, I think everything's looking pretty good. I don't know about this burlap being painted. Joyce came in the other day and thought she liked everything.
I'm allergic to burlap. It doesn't smell like burlap in here, so it's probably not gonna be that bad. It's gonna be fun to clean.
Because they do so much here, you know, on the farm, and so integral to its life. And so I just feel really excited and fortunate to be able to build this house and for it to be for them.
But everything else is nice and bright, ain't it? Really nice. Come on. It makes it look bigger.
This is really pretty. I saw it when he picked it up. Looks like somebody's already had like a accident.
Chris is my youngest brother. There are 4 of us in the litter, and he's the youngest. And I'm crazy about him, always have been.
We grew up in a small town in Middle Tennessee on a farm, and we've had great memories of catching snakes, and Alan always was poultry, and we went to the fair and we would enter cows, and I had some calves that I entered, and Alan did the poultry, and then we had some pigs that we took. So we grew up kind of close. The closet's what I really like. So much space. Tony made these nice cabinets. These will look real good. Joyce can put all our good stuff in here.
In fact, I had talked to Alan about having at least 1 or 2 cabinets that don't have the wood fronts so that you can see the dishes and things behind them. So because they're making it out of chicken wire, I'll still get that same effect where I can put my nice dishes, display dishes behind it so you can see them. So I'm excited. I think it'll look good.
Oh, look at the nice antique light fixtures. They forgot to cover them up. He'll be enjoying that, Mr. Smith will, won't he? He's gonna blow a gasket. Yeah, he wanted that antique look. Now we got a little frosty color. What's in there, Angel? There's her bedroom. You get your own bedroom. What's in there? Get up in there, find them beds. Get up in. Get in there. Come here. Get in there. There you go. Look at it. It's gonna be her bedroom.
I love the ceiling. We did this in our cabin down at the White River. We love it. Just gotta wipe it down and get the fingerprints off, and it's good to go for 10 years. I love the ceiling.
Alan didn't come up with that idea. And he kind of always watched over me, you know, so, because I was the youngest. And
He can be a little shy, but when he gets past that, he can be really, really funny. He's got a great attitude. He gets along with everybody.
yeah, but it's gonna be kind of hard. Joyce in her high heels.
Well, it's really clean. I wouldn't say fancy is probably the right word.
It's pretty nice, ain't it? Covered, smothered, and chunked. Yeah, it's gonna turn out really nice, isn't it?
Nice, nice, nice. Boy, I love these tall ceilings. Oh, beadboard, love it.
It's very insulated, soundproof too. I like that part.
Actually, I've gone through a lot of my closets, and it's amazing what kind of junk you can accumulate. So I've made a few trips down to Savers and donated clothes and things that we've outgrown. Taking a lot of things to our shop for storage. So yeah, we're getting excited.
I've received a photograph from someone named Brian in Wisconsin who's dealing with an area at his home that's between the garage and the house. So as you can see, this is a long corridor. We have a distance of 15 feet from here to here, and then to the back, all the way back here, it's about 35 feet, almost twice the length. So the idea is, how do we get from the front to the back through this narrow corridor? To the back is the south, so it gets more sun up here. So what I'm wondering about here, since the architecture feels very traditional, what we might do is think about coming across here with some sort of a fence, a low picket fence, to here, to this corner, with some sort of evergreen here, like a columnar U, and a U here, because those do well in Wisconsin where it's very cold. This would be a picket fence that comes across with some sort of scallop gate, like this. This could be underplanted here with hosta, which would have big, large leaves in the growing season. And I definitely would bring this path of gravel, connecting the gravel here, putting down some sort of edging, Brian, along this way, and then carry this path all the way through to the back here. And what you've done is you've created a sense of entry into this space. There's a door here where you could come in off of this gravel path into this door. And by doing this, you've set in place 2 beds, one here and one here. So then we need to think about what goes in these beds. And I would keep it very simple and make sure that you have enough evergreen weighed against the deciduous. Currently, you've got 1 evergreen here and everything else is deciduous. So in the winter, it's not that attractive. What I would do is come in here with a rhododendron on this end and a rhododendron down here on this end, again, to sort of frame this idea. There could be a focal point placed out here at somewhere where there could be a tree, like a large red maple that would be gorgeous in the fall. So a pair of rhododendron here, you could come up into this corner and put a rhododendron on this side. There's certainly not room here. Then in these beds, I would fill them with perennials so you don't have to plant them year after year. And I would use things that can take the shade. So toward the back, I would plant ferns, a big wide bed of them here, and the same on this side. Then in front of the ferns, I would plant something with a contrasting leaf like a heuchera or corabelle. In front, all the way down, a solid planting. And then in the corners, I would do big groupings of hosta to match what you have here. You see, using a limited plant palette and using big, bold strokes of those textures and colors will help simplify this and actually make it feel larger. The gate will give it a sense of entry. Brian, I hope this helps. And if you're enjoying these style tips for both inside and outside, send me a photograph of something you're having trouble with. We'll talk about it. You know, it really is hard to believe that each American produces about 5 to 7 pounds of waste a day. Now think about that. Over a year, that's over a ton. Now, if we all could just reduce a little bit, just think about the impact we could have on the planet. That's why I'd like for you to look for any way that you can reuse or recycle something. And if you come up with some clever ways, make sure that you post them on my Facebook page. I'd love to share the ideas. Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. I hope to see you next time. For The Garden Home, I'm Alan Smith. More information about today's topic and other topics covered in this series can be found at plansmith.com. Okay, are we ready? Yeah, what do you want to do, Jerry? Let the sun go down? You know, lighting can get pretty expensive around the place.